This is called Route 66. This is, I was really fascinated with Route 66 only because of the Green Book. And I've heard how, blacks also made it to the West. And there was a migration to the West. And, about the Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all these different things. You always hear about Harlem. It's always Harlem. Yes, Harlem was great, but there were other places that were just as great in doing great things. And we need to include that more in our narrative. I love New York, and I love the Studio Museum, the Harlem Museum, and all this stuff. But, hey, there were others. We need to educate on a broader way. We're not doing that. There were people in the West doing great things, and we need to pay homage to that as well. I put this in because this is one of the paintings I had in the show at the Studio Museum called Black Romantic. This is a small watercolor. So it measures about 3 by 4 inches. This is Mr. Northern, again, but a different depiction of Mr. Northern. It's an oil painting. Again, I was looking at a lot of Motherwell's work and abstractions, and I wanted to show that kind of, it's titled Boundary. And what are those boundaries for black men in our culture? Trapped, feeling, looking out, or is it protection, or what is this? So my work, and this is a third work that was in the show at the Studio Museum called, this is Sam and Dolly. And if you look at her, she's a very light complected Negro, and Sam is a very dark complected Negro. When I was growing up as a kid, there was a lot of tension between darker complected Negroes and lighter complected Negroes, because my grandmother talked about it. And I didn't understand. I thought it was ridiculous. The most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Even as a kid, I thought it was ridiculous. But I always had the admiration for them, being married and but he's really ill with cancer in this picture. And a lot of people this painting really resonated with a lot of people in Harlem who saw it. This is the New York Times, a black world of ins and outs. This show was put together by Lowry Sims, Thelma Golden, and I'm sure most of you know who she is. And at this time, I was in New Orleans and I was doing really well, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be in this show. I wasn't sure what she was up to. I wasn't, that familiar with. I knew about how she positioned things in terms of irony and racial interrogation and different things that she was doing out of the Whitney biennials and different things. So I wasn't sure what her angle was, and I was a little skeptical slightly. And she kept calling, and I said, okay, I sent some things in. And I went up to the show. My mother lives in East Orange, went up to the show. And so I sent my book up, my first book up. Nobody bought a book or anything. And then at the opening, a white lady in a gentleman runs over to me and said, "Are you Dean Mitchell?" I said, "Yes." She says, "Where do you live?" I said, "Kansas City." She says, "Are you familiar with Michael Coleman?" I said, "No, I don't know. Who is he?" I said, "You're a major critic for the New York Times. He loves your work." And da-da-da. She went on and on. She said, "You must get out of Kansas City. It does not ring culture. If you want to get known, you must move to New York." I thought, I want to move to New York. I love New York, but I don't live there. No, you have to. Paris, move to New York. Felt like a scene out of Sex and the City. And I thought, wow, are you serious? So I said, well, the art world is very complex. I just kind of blew it off. So the next day, because I have a lot of friends in New York, my mother's phone is ringing off the hook in East Orange. It's ringing off the hook. "You're New York Times." "Yeah, New York Times." I said, "Oh, that's great. Okay, I got a little line in New York Times." Well, I didn't know the kind of line I got in New York Times. This painting called Socrates, which is basically my critique of intelligence being lost in the streets of America. And the red, white, and blue, as you know, are the colors of the flag. But what I didn't realize that it was reproduced from the very top of the New York Times to the very bottom. Dean Mitchell is a virtual modern-day Vermeer of ordinary black people, dignifying him through its elegance of his concentration and touch. And he mentions me in the middle, and he mentions me in the end. This did not go down real well. I was an outsider. I was an outsider. At this time, I was sitting on the board at the Lyme Academy, in old Lyme, Connecticut. I don't have time to tell you that story, but Cynthia McFadden, who was the host of Nightline, she was on that committee. He wanted to introduce me to Katharine Hepburn, but I resigned from the committee and I didn't stay on it. But there was a gentleman there, I believe he was either Harvard or Yale, and he was saying, "I just saw that review in the New York Times." I said, "That's very rare to people give outsiders anything like that." But what I didn't know, that this particular exhibition was not an exhibition that Ms. Golden felt was, sophisticated art, or she was unfamiliar with any of the shows, jury competitions. This was a whole nother art world to her. And I thought, wow, what art world have I been in? I thought American Watercolor Society's different shows I was in there, these regional shows were not of any real significance to her. She was in a whole different world of Whitney Biennials. These worlds apparently did not intersect. I was unaware of this language. And so here again, I am being educated on another level, in a different way, with someone who has grown up with culture in New York and has probably went to a very good school and been socialized differently than a kid like me growing up in the rural South working in tobacco. So I'm feeling like, wow, this is really some interesting dynamics. I was taken aback. I understood it, but at the same time, I was also hurt, not so much for myself, but for others who were in the show. Because not everybody has the opportunity that some of us have. And to bring them to the center of the art world, to critique their work in this manner, was deeply unpleasant. And I want people to know I have nothing against Ms. Golden, because she has done wonderful things for artists, wonderful things, and she's helped a lot of artists. But these were artists who showed at art fairs and black art fairs and different things. I was not showing at black art fairs, but she threw me in the pot. The critic yanks me out of the pot. This was not supposed to happen. I didn't get a call from a museum. I didn't get a call from anyone. Zero. This was not a show that they put together that they respected, though they claimed it was not supposed to be a critique of any sort. But it was a critique, and they did have opinions, as we all do. But we all come from different backgrounds, and we all bring certain baggages to the table. And this is what I've learned about doing art. I do what I want. You like it? Great. You don't like it? It's okay. It's a big world. I may not like some of the things that you do. I don't even like some of the things that I do. It's okay. But I think as a people, with how we have struggled in this country, with how we have struggled to have this critique of this nature, without the artists really giving a lecture, really giving a talk about why they do what they do and how they do it and why, was a disservice to everyone. And like I said, Ms. Golden's a very, very powerful person in the art world. She's very powerful. And I'm not trying to cross her, but there are a lot of nuances to artists of color making it anywhere in this country, on any level. And unless you know the nuances and complexities of that world, without at least engaging them in a more deeper way, to bring them there to the center of the art world and do that. I don't think any curator in the history of American art has ever done that to anyone. And there are people out here doing all kinds of things. Why would we do it to the least of us who've had the least opportunity? That is my word on that. And like I said, I wish no ill to Ms. Golden. I wish her all, she is very, like I said, she's a very powerful person, and she's doing wonderful things. But why that? Why? You have to get the catalog to read. I'm sure she has deep explanations for it. And after that, No Way Out came about. I thought, wow, I'm getting beat up on the right and the left. wow, I'm in a box. There is no way out of this. But there is some freedom. You know, when I showed this painting, I asked somebody what it meant. So I was talking about the black man in prison. I said, well, actually, the black man's free. It's the viewer that is in prison. Is your perception of the black. So you assume because you saw the bars that he was in jail. But he's on the lighter side of it. It's the perception of the black male based on all the continuing imagery of black men and how they're viewed in society. We're automatically assumed to be a criminal. And then we're put in a box. When I start showing my work at the Grange Workshop, well, this is black art, but I'm doing landscapes and still lifes. I'm doing all kinds of things. I refuse to be put in a box. I would do the black